So but now I'm working on my magnum. Yeah, rest, heard they coming. I'm obsessed, yeah, I'm impressed that people really think they'll be up next. It's your life, you ain't all about it. All you do is make raps, just talk about it. Face facts, I'ma do my own thing, turn in my own lane, so you're not a threat.
What if Midoriya had a Green Lantern ring? The amount of willpower Midoriya has is seriously underrated in the anime community. First off, knowing that if he overworks himself even the slightest, it could result in him shattering any possible bones in his body. On top of having to regulate that while fighting villains that are actively trying to kill him. Not only that, he also has to deal with the insane weight on his shoulders of knowing that due to him now having One for All, the fate of the world is resting on his shoulders. Because if Midoriya were to fail in this current arc that's going on right now, the entire world is going to crumble. Both figuratively and literally. He is going to have to fight one of, if not the most powerful villain that is on Earth at the moment, being what Shigaraki currently is. All while still being in high school. The amount of willpower it would take to be able to deal with all of that is difficult to even fathom. The boost that he would get from the Green Lantern ring would be so potent that he'd be able to destroy anyone in his verse without even having to use the extra boost that he'd have with One for All and its quirks. The power boost of the Green Lantern ring, fueled by the amount of willpower Midoriya has, would make even current Shigaraki seem like a mere ant in comparison to what he'd be. He would be incomprehensibly faster than Shigaraki. Even the average Green Lantern can move multiple times faster than light. With Deku's IQ, the constructs he'd be able to create with his Lantern Ring would be incredibly creative. And even if Shigaraki were to somehow get his hand on Deku to try to decay him, due to the fact Deku would know this, and with the power of a Green Lantern Ring, he'd probably be able to coat his body in a construct, basically making a sort of light construct armor. And that just makes me think, what would happen? What would the light construct's reaction be to being decayed? I don't even think his quirk would even be able to work on the light constructs. It's not like you could decay light. At least I don't think so. But that's besides the point. Needless to say, Deku with a Green Lantern ring would make anyone in his verse seem like nothing. Even Shigaraki's current incredible amount of power, where compared to the rest of the verse he's seen as a god, that Shigaraki would look at Green Lantern Deku as if he were a god. If All Might had a Blue Lantern ring, the amount of power that he would get from that ring would probably be too much for even the ring to handle. But let's not worry about if the ring would overload or not. Let's actually talk about why it could possibly overload. All Might was the symbol of peace. People all over the world, and especially the people in Japan, damn near worshipped this man because he was seen as an unrivaled force. Just his mere presence made people not even worry about villains being there, because they were so assured that he would come out on top and save them. Even in his fight against All for One, where he deflated and everyone saw his very skinny self, that didn't change anything. Everyone was still chanting All Might's name, trying to ensure that he had the motivation to keep fighting. If I'm being completely honest, the power boost All Might would get from having a Blue Lantern ring would make him reach an actual godly level. The amount of hope he instills in others would give him so much of a boost, it would be hard to even comprehend how much of a boost it would really be. The only way you can give him a rival would be if you gave All for One, or current Shigaraki, a Yellow Lantern ring. And that's basically the only way All for One or current Shigaraki, or any character in My Hero, would have a remote chance if they were to try and go up against a Blue Lantern All Might.
In all reality, Goku and Vegeta in base form destroys everybody in this.
Yeah, Goku and Vegeta do not beat all the characters in that picture. Being generous, Goku and Vegeta currently in the manga scale to multiversal at their most powerful states. specifically Goku's Ultra Instinct and Vegeta's Ultra Ego. So being kind to Goku and Vegeta, any character in that picture that scales less than multiversal would inevitably lose to either one of them. And they'd have a much easier job with those characters having them work together. But there were beings in that picture, near the back mostly, but there were characters in that image that scale anywhere from complex multi up to layers into outer. Those levels of dimensional tiering wouldn't be able to be closed even if Goku and Vegeta fused and stacked Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego together. Even with the fusion multiplier and their transformation multipliers, they simply would not be capable of reaching a new higher dimensional transcendence. Simply, the multiplier of their transformations, or even fusion, simply would not be enough to make up for the massive power difference between Goku and Vegeta and actual deities in Marvel. Now, before anyone tries to get on me in the comments, in no way am I saying Goku and Vegeta are weak. Far from it. They are multiversal beings. And they've done some pretty incredible things over the course of the multiple Dragon Ball shows. But if we're being honest here, they really don't have anything that could contend with the top tiers of Marvel. Probably the best thing in their arsenal is both Goku and Vegeta having Hakai, but even that'll have its limits because the Hakai won't work on people stronger than the person who uses it. So yeah, if Goku and Vegeta were in Marvel, they'd be pretty powerful, but nowhere near the top tiers.
I got greatness in my bed. I sleep, I eat, then I...
Okay, before I start, that way people don't get angry with my decisions, this is based off of my personal preference on what I like in antagonists. Just because I pick one over the other, doesn't mean that I don't like the others. Okay, first row, I'm gonna go with Aizen. I absolutely love when villains are equal parts intelligent and evil. I absolutely hate it when villains are purely just meat-headed thugs that just like fighting. I absolutely love the fact that Aizen is just so incredibly intelligent. I love the fact that Aizen is such a shit-talker but is able to fully back up his statements with his actions. Next, I'm gonna go with Doflamingo. That dude was an absolute menace from the moment we saw him up until the final battle against Luffy. Again, extremely intelligent. He was able to manipulate an entire country to adore him, basically. And I also love that his devil fruit is pretty fitting for the theme of his character. He literally pulls the strings from the background, manipulating things in his favor, whether it be getting people on his side, literally controlling people with his strings, as well as using his strings to control people, that way he can make himself look better in the public eye. The dude literally manipulated his way into becoming the ruler of an entire island. And lastly, it was a toss-up between Obito and Frieza, but purely because of just how much of a menace he is, I'm gonna go with Frieza. Frieza is the perfect definition of evil for the sake of being evil, and it actually working for his character. Normally, characters that are evil for the sake of being evil kind of feel hollow to me. In the case of Frieza, it just works. He literally rules over an entire empire that spans practically the entire universe, as well as possibly having one of the highest kill counts out of any villain in any anime. He literally commits mass genocide with a smile on his face, and anyone that even mildly inconveniences him, he will utterly vaporize in an instant without a second thought. Frieza is the pure embodiment of evil when it comes to anime antagonists. To my knowledge, I don't think there is any other anime antagonist, villain, any character that is as pure evil as Frieza in any anime. So just to reiterate, my choices were Aizen, Doflamingo, and Frieza. Okay, so I'm personally gonna go with the blue pill. Now don't get me wrong, the red pill is unbelievably broken. But in all reality, I personally would rather have the passive ability of GER, but I would much rather have the passive abilities of Gold Experience Requiem as well as the abilities and strength boost of Ultra Instinct. And I guess also having his willpower. But if I'm just getting the willpower and not the actual Green Lantern ring, then having the willpower isn't really going to do too much for me. Plus, one of the key ways to activate Ultra Instinct, assuming you already have it, is you gotta keep a clear mind. If your mind is clouded with thoughts, it's hard for you to use Ultra Instinct, if not impossible to do so. Which is basically the reason Vegeta wasn't able to use it, is because he was too much of a tactical fighter to be able to just let things flow on their own and let his instincts take control. I have severe ADHD. 90% of the time, my mind goes blank when I'm not even trying. If I get a godly ability purely by clearing my mind, then it's going to be easy for me. And you combine the ability to dodge things on my own with Ultra Instinct, as well as the passive abilities of Gold Experience Requiem, how the hell are you even going to touch me? Now, if I looked at these objectively on which one I think would actually be a more powerful combination, I honestly say the red pill is far more powerful overall, but based off my personal preferences, I would much rather have the blue pill's powers. Okay, first round we've got King Piccolo versus Edo Itachi. Now, for the sake of this, let's just say that the Edo just doesn't keep coming back until the jutsu's been dispelled. Because if that was the case, then it wouldn't matter that King Piccolo far outclasses him. He's just going to keep coming back until King Piccolo runs out of energy. We could still give him the regeneration, though. The only difference is, if he gets fully vaporized by King Piccolo, he won't be coming back. Which is likely the possibility, because although Itachi's Genjutsu would be able to possibly affect King Piccolo, all it's going to do is attack King Piccolo's mind. Physically, it's not going to do anything. Even under the Genjutsu, Itachi doesn't have anything that would be able to do too much damage to King Piccolo. Put in perspective, attack-wise, King Piccolo is stronger than Master Roshi, who just prior in Dragon Ball destroyed the moon. And Prime King Piccolo far outclassed Master Roshi. Now, speed-wise, you could make an argument for Itachi being somewhat faster, purely because original Dragon Ball was kind of iffy when it came to how fast a character actually be. Sometimes they'd have faster than light, other times they'd hardly be able to dodge lightning. But I'd say King Piccolo because his strength is far too much, as well as his durability would be way too much for Itachi to handle. Now, Bakugo, Deku, and Todoroki versus Noelle. All four characters are in their manga versions, and if that is the case, Noelle is utterly annihilating them in like 10 seconds. She is far faster, she has far higher attack power, she has definitely far more hacks abilities. Pretty much the only thing that I would give any of the characters from My Hero over her is that Deku's smarter. But besides that, she has every other advantage. Now, Saitama versus Luffy I am actually going to skip because I don't know too much about the stuff Luffy has in the manga. I know he's ridiculous in the manga, but I'm pretty sure that no matter what I say for Saitama versus Luffy, people are going to say I was wrong. So I'm just going to move on to the last one, Muzan versus War Arc Hinata. The biggest problem I see here is, although Hinata far outclasses Muzan when it comes to pure strength and speed, honestly, I don't think she has anything in her arsenal that can fully vaporize him. Because that's basically the only way they'd be capable of bypassing Muzan's healing factor. Unless you have the special blade, the only other way to permanently kill a demon is through total cell destruction. And to my knowledge, War Arc Hinata had nothing in her arsenal that could fully annihilate every cell of Muzan. So in all honesty, he would far outlast her, although getting brutally beaten the entire time. And as a result, she would run out of stamina, and I think he would win.
Life is like a motherfucking dream. Fill my double cup up with some leans.
Honestly, no matter what you pick, you're fucked. But if I truly had to decide one or the other, I'd honestly go with Joker. I know that sounds crazy. But even more surprising, you have a much higher likelihood of surviving at the end of the week than you would with the other guy from Tokyo Ghoul. Because when we actually look at their methods, Joker is majority of the time going to torture you psychologically. Yes, there is still going to be plenty of the Jason Todd treatment, where you're basically beaten like a piñata with a crowbar. But the other guy, your chances of survival are in the negatives, if I'm being honest. Unless you have a healing factor on the level of a ghoul, you're not surviving more than a couple hours. Because his torture involves chopping off parts of the person he's torturing. And he especially loves it when the person has a healing factor. Because in that situation, he doesn't restrain himself. So basically what this decision comes down to is, if you choose the guy from Tokyo Ghoul, you're dead within the first day, unless you also become a ghoul, in which you just gotta survive the week worth of insanely painful torture. Or going with Joker, where there's almost a guarantee that your mind's gonna be broken from the experience, and a much higher likelihood of survival than if you chose the other person. So although both of these are horrible options, I'd honestly go with Joker. Yep, good luck beating this. The fusion of Thor and Superman. So recently in Marvel Comics, Thor has been getting a hell of a lot of power boosts recently, and each individual boost is massive. Whether it be him getting the power cosmic from Galactus, but on top of that, Thor also got access to the Odin Force, meaning this fusion isn't just going to be Superman times Thor, it is going to be Superman times Thor plus Odin. And one thing about Superman that I want to talk about is, people think that he just has a weakness to magic. That's actually not the case. He simply just doesn't have an immunity to it. But adding the resilience of Thor and Odin's abilities, he might as well be immune to magic at that point. Because not only is he going to have the absolutely insane resilience of all three of these characters multiplied upon each other, but also all of their powers, abilities, combat experience, intelligence, as well as this fusion being able to use the overwhelming amount of Asgardian magic that is now going to be coursing through his veins. First, let's talk about the overwhelming amount of durability this fusion would have. You would be taking the durability of Superman times the durability of Thor, and then add on top of that the durability of Odin. In all honesty, your odds of defeating this fusion are practically zero unless you're just one of the most powerful characters in Marvel or DC. Okay, one of my followers tagged me in this video. Sadly, they had their stitches and duets off, so I'm just going to tag the person who posted this. So as you can see, the question is, what if Goku and Vegeta grew up training with Beerus and Whis as their masters? Let's get the easy part out of the way. They would be incomprehensibly stronger than their canon selves. So much so that if you compared how strong they'd be in this scenario to their current canon selves, their canon selves would look like Yamcha in comparison to them in this scenario. Especially if they stuck to the same path that they chose in current canon, Goku would have mastered the multiple different layers of Ultra Instinct rather than just the one layer he has now. Vegeta probably would have already taken over as the God of Destruction, because by the time both of these characters, if they started training as kids and kept training until they reached their current canon age, they will have both greatly surpassed Beerus in probably even just their regular Super Saiyan God form. And speaking of that, if they started out as kids, I don't even think they'd have regular Super Saiyan forms. I think they would just start out with God forms, since the only kind of training they would be getting is from gods. Plus, another way of showing just how fast they grow in power, look at how just short of an amount of time they've trained with Beerus and Whis in canon. From the start of Battle of Gods to the current events of the Granola arc, it's been like, 3 years tops? And they went from struggling to characters as strong as Majin Buu to being two of the strongest mortals in the entire multiverse. So if you factor in how old Goku and Vegeta are in canon, then factor in them training that many years with Beerus and Whis, with the speed at which they've been growing in canon, by the time this scenario's Goku and Vegeta are the same age they are in Dragon Ball Super, hell, they'd already be in the realm of angels, God forbid destroyers. Jiren, Moro, Granola, those three would look like mere ants in comparison to this version of Goku and Vegeta. The fusion of Superman and Ghost Rider. Literally without even giving any more information about it, just the mention of fusing Superman with Ghost Rider alone tells you how broken it's going to be. But hell, I've got 3 minutes to explain what monster this fusion would actually end up being. First off, you'd have the insane base level durability of Superman, but with all the resistances and hacks abilities of the damn Ghost Rider. So first of all, you're going to have to be insanely strong to even damage the body normally with the resistance of Superman. But now you're also going to have to try and find something strong enough that can bypass that, while also having to worry about all the resistances the Ghost Rider possesses. Pretty much the only weapon that can counter this is if you can somehow make a holy weapon out of kryptonite. Outside of something like that, I don't see anything else being able to take this down outside of the actual gods of Marvel and DC. And even if you have a holy kryptonite weapon, there's no telling you're going to be able to actually use it well enough to beat them. As we've seen, even with Lex Luthor having kryptonite, Superman is still capable of beating him most of the time. So you add all the insane abilities that Ghost Rider would have with the insane speed that this character would have. The odds of you even being able to use that weapon in beating them with it might as well be zero. The only way I could see a regular person standing a chance against this thing would be if you had a wholly enchanted suit of armor that is made of kryptonite, while also having an arsenal of holy weapons so large that it would make Deadpool jealous. But even if I gave you all of that, your chances of victory are still so slim I couldn't even give you a proper percentage. The fusion of Juggernaut and the Incredible Hulk. Now yes, quite a while ago I did make a video about this fusion. In all honesty, it probably was the first fusion I ever covered on my page. But enough about the backstory. Let's actually get onto how strong it would be. And yeah, calling this fusion strong is the understatement of the century. This fusion would have the ever-growing speed and momentum of Juggernaut, with the ever-growing strength and durability of Hulk, as well as possessing both of their healing factors. And due to the gem that gives Juggernaut his abilities, it would make it to where this fusion would never need to stop to eat, sleep, or drink. It could go on an endless rampage with no reason to ever stop if it ever started. So basically what you've got here is something that can endlessly grow in strength and durability, as well as endlessly grow in speed and momentum. So by definition, this is the fusion of an unstoppable force and an immovable object. And if someone were strong enough to fight this fusion at the beginning of the fight and be strong enough to actually win, they would have to win quickly or else they're not going to win at all. Wow, that is a lot of trauma packed into a single fusion. The fusion of Guts from Berserk and future Gohan. Kind of fitting because not only have both of these characters pretty much spent the majority, if not the entirety of their lives, fighting every day to try and survive in the hellish world they were placed in, but on top of that, both of them are missing an arm. This fusion would have unbreakable determination and limitless willpower. Both of these characters fight day in and day out against near impossible odds. And sadly, in the case of Gohan, he kept on fighting until his last breath. In the case of this fusion, though, you've basically got a much more deadly version of future Trunks. Because not only have they been through a hell of a lot more battles, but by adding the mentality of Guts to the power of Gohan, you will have a character that will train non-stop, so much so that they will train until their body is damn near broken. As well as, thanks to Guts' personality, this fusion wouldn't even hesitate to off an opponent. There would be 0-second chances for any villain that encountered this fusion. Plus, Saiyan biology with the Berserker armor would be an absolutely broken combination. The Berserker armor is extremely powerful, but comes at an extreme cost. The armor will allow you to keep on fighting until almost every bone in your body has been broken. You can keep on fighting until barely any blood is left in your body. In exchange for your sanity, you will go into a Berserker rage when you wear this armor. You line that up with the ability to grow stronger through Zenkais, as well as the rage boosts of a Saiyan when they go Berserk. The androids, Cell, Dabra, Majin Buu, all of these enemies that come to the future timeline will be defeated. They will get no second chances, and this fusion would not let them power up. If they see an opening to take the opponent out, they are going to take it without even second guessing. Meaning that in this timeline, Future Trunks wouldn't have to go back to the other timeline, because him training alongside this fusion would result in 2 half-Saiyan swordsmen that do not fuck around, and as a result would take out many enemies, if not all the enemies of the future timeline, before they even become a problem. Goku with Batman's IQ is an absolutely terrifying combination. Because although Goku's battle IQ is quite impressive, his actual IQ is quite lacking. Not only would he have access to all of his Saiyan biology and everything that makes Goku, Goku, but he would also have the ability to make constant contingency plans like Batman does. His actual battle tactics would be nearly unmatched. The only ones I could think that would possibly have better battle tactics would be the damn Angels. And by being as smart as Batman, he would know to take out an opponent before they get a chance to power up. So let me just give an example. Let's think of Resurrection F. After Gohan powered up while fighting against First Form Frieza, Goku has a transmission to Earth. After Frieza saw Goku, he transformed into his final form, meaning he saw Goku while still in his first form. With Batman's IQ, he would go to his full power right away, while Frieza was still in his first form, mind you, Speed Blitz and annihilate Frieza before he gets any chance of powering up. And then the days following that event, he would come up with multiple contingency plans of ways to deal with Frieza, no matter what scenario might occur. Whether Frieza just tries to do what he did with Planet Vegeta and blow it up from orbit, or train for more years ahead of time, Goku would plan ahead for those things. Not only that, when it came to coming up with a Tournament of Power team, I think he'd actually make an even stronger team, because he'd actually be smart enough to think of the strongest possible team for the tournament. Not only that, I think he'd actually make Bulma jealous due to how intelligent he'd be. Hell, could you imagine if the two of them worked together? Goku with the IQ of Batman working alongside Bulma to come up with different types of technology? Future Bulma created a time machine out of scraps in an apocalyptic war zone. Present Bulma with all of her resources working alongside Goku, who has the IQ of Batman. There is literally no telling what they would be capable of creating. Naruto with a Green Lantern ring. With the amount of stuff Naruto went through his life, the amount of willpower he would have to still be willing to fight and protect the village, despite how horribly he was treated by the villagers, is quite commendable. And with how big of a boost the Green Lantern ring would give, with the amount of willpower Naruto does possess, his base power at the beginning of Shippuden, plus the Green Lantern power boost, would already put him well beyond most characters in Shippuden. Hell, the boost he would get would probably make him strong enough to contend with some members of the Otsutsuki. But that is not all, because he will still have access to Kurama in all of his forms. And if you also factor in his amount of shadow clones he can literally make an entire army of Green Lantern clones of himself. Plus, those light constructs would be incredibly difficult to break, even by some of the strongest jutsus in the series. I will say though, Naruto I don't think would be very creative with his constructs. He's not exactly the smartest person. His battle IQ is pretty good, but his overall IQ is quite lacking. So that would result in his light constructs being pretty basic overall. But even basic light constructs are still going to be pretty difficult for any average ninja in the verse to deal with. And if somehow he were to encounter an enemy that was stronger than the current strongest Otsutsuki members, he can combine the full power of his Lantern Ring with the Baryon mode, which would result in quite the massive power boost. Well, in this scenario, not only are you going to have a Goku with unmatched intellect, but also have enough powers in his arsenal that Zeno would no longer be the Omni King. This Goku with Dr. Manhattan's powers would quite easily become the new Omni King. And with how strong he'd actually be, he would never need to ever use his Super Saiyan forms ever again. Hell, he wouldn't even need to use Kaioken at all. His base power, amplified with the powers of Dr. Manhattan, along with the intellect of him, would make even fighting the Grand Priest a trivial task. Hell, with how Dr. Manhattan acts in DC Comics, think of any what-if scenario involving Dragon Ball that there is on YouTube. This version of Goku would be able to create those scenarios. Because in the comics, Dr. Manhattan is all about creating what-if scenarios, where he's just like, what if I change one thing about reality itself? What if these characters didn't exist? What if these characters did exist in this timeline? Sometimes he'll even just go throughout the timeline and just kill everyone, just for the hell of it. And then once he analyzes everything about everyone in the multiverse, he just brings them back with a thought. So basically what'll result from this fusion is every Dragon Ball what if that there ever is on YouTube, or pretty much any scenario, this version of Goku would bring to life. Or, if he just wants to train with Vegeta and try and get him stronger as well as the other strongest people in the multiverse, he could just portion off a smaller part of himself that has a fraction of his overall power to merely be a training partner for the strongest people in the multiverse besides himself, resulting in an Omni King type character that actually trains with people. Yeah, that just has bad news written all over it. Yujiro is on site with anyone. They even blink at him wrong, and he's going to mess them up. So Yujiro having Ultra Instinct, and thanks to his knowledge of martial arts, if he understood what Ultra Instinct was, I could see him actually being able to use it, if he at least trained for it at least. With the boost of speed, strength, durability, and all of his stats he'd get from Ultra Instinct, he would wipe out every martial artist on the planet in the time it took me to take a drink. And probably the most terrifying thing is you're giving Ultra Instinct to someone who wouldn't hesitate to kill an opponent. And normally I'd say, oh, Ultra Instinct wouldn't allow you to just kill someone, because you have to think about doing that. But in the case of Yujiro, I think he would instinctually just kill martial artists without even hesitating. Yeah, having Ultra Instinct and the Sharingan is just the recipe for an untouchable fighter. Especially if they have the highest tier of Sharingan and complete Ultra Instinct. Not only does the Sharingan and the higher tiers give you some level of precognition, in combination with Ultra Instinct, where all your actions are performed by your instincts. With this combination, you'd know when an attack is coming way before it happens, and be quite easily able to dodge it with the help of Ultra Instinct. So you'll be multiple steps ahead of whoever you're going against. And that's not even factoring in all the other powers that the higher tiers of the Sharingan grant the user, and the strength, speed, and durability increase that Ultra Instinct in its complete form grants the user. Hell, when Goku's using just his current level of Ultra Instinct, the amount of power he's generating far exceeds the power of even Blue Kaioken times 20. So every single one of your physical stats are going to be amplified to an ungodly level. And even if an opponent was somehow strong enough to contend with you at a physical level, unless they were infinitely faster than you, they're not going to hit you with this combination of abilities. The fusion of Hulk and Shazam would be downright horrifying. The amount of energy that would just be radiating off of this fusion would be insanely powerful. Not only would they have the base level capabilities of Shazam, who has the power of 6 separate gods, but it would be even higher than that due to base Hulk being added to that. And the fact that he would be able to grow rapidly in strength, durability, and all that sort thanks to Hulk's rage boosts, giving him near limitless potential to grow in power. Not only that, if you're even going to try and hurt this fusion, you've got to both bypass its durability, which is going to be Shazam's durability, times the Hulk. And Shazam is at least comparable durability-wise to Superman. So, you've got Shazam's durability multiplied by base Hulk, and then that durability will increase exponentially as Hulk gets angrier. But even if you're somehow strong enough to hurt them past that insane level of durability, they've got an even more insane healing factor thanks to Hulk. Plus, probably the two biggest things that are going to be making this even more powerful is the both magic and intelligence from Shazam. Because, yes, Hulk can be intelligent depending on which version we're using, but the wisdom of Solomon and the powers of Zeus. And when you actually look at it, Hulk's gamma powers are originated from Hell, so this is a combination of Hell power and godly power. What I'm interpreting from your comment is, what if Goku had Frieza's potential? And if he did, Goku's going to have the same mentality as Saitama, because everyone in his verse will be so damn weak in comparison to Goku that he will be bored out of his mind. Look at Frieza. 4 months of training, he went from the level of a Super Saiyan to a Super Saiyan Blue. And he wasn't training as hard as Goku or Vegeta did. He was doing light sparring against pretty much just one of his soldiers. He wasn't even training against someone who was comparable to him. He was literally just beating on this soldier like a punching bag for 4 months and reached the level of a god. Meaning, starting when he meets Grandpa Gohan up until his rematch against Piccolo Jr., that is multiple years in which he'd be getting training with Frieza's potential. And I think instead of just using a person as a punching bag like Frieza did for 4 months, Goku actually doing martial arts training over the course of years, before even Raditz shows up, this Goku's base form could already be on the level or even surpassed Tournament of Power Goku and Jiren. And I know that might sound crazy, but in all honesty, it's possibly even a lowball estimate. Because as I said, Frieza's training wasn't intense. It was basically just warm-up exercises every day for 4 months. So in all honesty, this version of Goku and just his base, by the time even Raditz shows up, is already going to be on the level of possibly even Beerus' full power. And if he just keeps on training and eventually gets the Super Saiyan forms, I doubt he'd ever need to use them. Because his base will be so powerful in relation to the rest of his verse that he would literally one-shot everything. Well, this wouldn't just be the end of the universe, this could possibly even be the end of the multiverse. The fusion of Dragon Ball Super Broly and the ultimate life form, Doomsday. So due to these two specific characters being combined, they would have two different forms of adaptability. Mid-combat adaptability, like Broly, able to grow rapidly in power throughout the course of the battle. And in the case of Broly, he was able to go from weaker than base Vegeta to being so strong that Goku and Vegeta had to fuse to beat him. And the fight, from start to finish, was only a couple hours long. So he has a ridiculously fast growth rate when it comes to power. But they will also have Doomsday's adaptability, in which if you do somehow manage to kill him, he will come back immune to that specific way that you killed him. Combine that with Saiyan Zenkai boost and Broly's potential, as well as the constant growth and strength during battle. Not only is trying to defeat them for good going to be nearly impossible, but unless you find a way to defeat them in a quick manner, Broly's potential with this fusion would allow them to surpass even an enemy that was greater than them to begin with. And Broly's potential allows him to grow much faster the angrier he gets. So you combine him with the mentality of this just monster that is Doomsday, and the rate at which his power will grow will be exponentially higher than what we even saw in the Broly movie. So yeah, unless you have a reality warper on your side, it's going to be extremely difficult to beat this fusion.